Bam, got the double cameras going on now. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Hold on, let me set this up. If I can point it out. All right.
All right. So just I'm the MBJ Warrior, promoter of Gut Check, and I run a podcast called Fight Club Live Radio or Fight Club Radio, the real Fight Club Radio. So this is the MMA Doc, guys. MMA Doc, please tell us who you are and how you became the MMA Doc.
Hey, Greg. Awesome. Really stoked to be on your IG Live and YouTube Live. So, my name is Dr. Richard Mack. I am a physical therapist for the past 14 years. So I've just been generally working with a lot of martial artists and fighters for the past 5-6 years or so. But then I launched the business, the MMA Doc, during the pandemic. So basically, it was 2020. Everything was shut down, and I decided to really make a jump and just really kind of tackle the deep issues that I see with fighters. And it's just been taken off. It's just been working with fighters just around the world. They're doing really well. I've worked with fighters from various levels, whether they are professional, high level, amateur, or just recreational. And it's just been awesome just seeing them take a science-based approach and just really lasting in the sport instead of getting injured and trashed all the time.
So coming from a PT background, how do you see that transition? How did you make that transition into combat sports?
So as a physical therapist, I did Muay Thai for a lot of years, over a decade, and always just was the good training partner. I trained with some fighters and everything, and I would take care of their injuries. But the thing was it was just almost like a temporary relief. I was just putting out fires. It would just come back with an injury, and then I took a deep look and I was like, hey, what's going on with this? And then really I realized it was just their training regimen. They were just overtrained, usually just doing a lot of excessive miles running. They didn't eat much. They would kind of not maintain their weight outside of fight camp, and then they would just frantically try to trim down. They weren't recovering well, and then all of a sudden these injuries start flaring up. And once we really tackled the deep issues that was going on with fighters, they are just performing much better. They're not injured, and they're just enjoying their career in the sport.
Okay. So when you have a fighter come to you, let's say they come to you because of an injury, not because of, being the MMA doc, they come to you because of an injury. Um, do you start to kind of discuss why they have that injury and how to prevent that injury and how to kind of become a client of the MMA doc versus being the PT client?
Yeah. So basically, my business now is just exclusively the MMA doc. So if they reach out to me, they just kind of know that they want to
Okay.
own their injuries and then train smarter. So, but generally, fighters have a lot of overuse injuries. So generally, they have a flare up of their shoulder. Let's say just doing a lot of hooks and everything. And then you take a closer look at what's going on. They're probably not doing any structured strength training. They are not recovering well. And then, it's high stress. They're always in the state of stress. And, those contributes to those injuries. And generally, when we kind of take care of it by having them train smarter, teaching them how to own their injuries instead of going to someone for short-term relief, they are much happier overall because they could just focus on training instead of running to someone to temporarily fix them.
Okay. So how do you deal with a fighter having maybe a coach that's overbearing and no, I got this, I don't need anybody else, or doesn't want anybody else as a part of their camp?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to navigate, but generally, I would always kind of have to play around and adjust things on the training end.
Mm.
With if I'm working with a fighter and the coach is very adamant about what they need to do, but thankfully the message has been growing, and a lot more coaches are understanding that, hey, you know what, fighting, getting my fighters ready for a fight, that's my thing. Trying to tackle all these other things, it's just too much on my plate. So I rather kind of offset to a professional. And once they see their athletes training better, then the message kind of grows, and then they're warming up to the idea. So, but there are some coaches that just are adamant about just following this strict regimen, and that becomes a challenge.
So how do you get over that hump? Let's say you are, I hit you up, I need your help. I want your help. I'm paying you for your help, but yet my coach is like, you know, giving me, I guess, an extreme workout where I'm also doing your workout. Like how do you kind of hit that nail on the head?
Yeah, so I would initially I would try to have to adjust things on my end with the training load, or I kind of have to ask the hard questions with the fighter and just kind of let them come to that conclusion that maybe they need to have that talk with the coach because you know it, I don't really want to disrespect the coach because obviously it's always in the best interest of the fighter, but sometimes like if the coach is kind of pushing it outside the realm because they just don't know. Sometimes I will just kind of ask the fighter like some hard questions. They come to that conclusion, like, "Hey, you know what? I really can't be doing this or anything." And sometimes the coach will come along with it and say, "You know what? I get it. Like, this is probably like better for you." Or they kind of part their relationship, which happens at sometimes, but not often. But it really depends on
Okay.
that relationship that they have between them.
Now, weight cuts.
Yeah.
I see all the posts going up about weight cuts, about the guesswork. What besides guessing is some of the common mistakes you see with weight cuts?
Man, it's just I think we are living in a society that everyone thinks that, oh, I can cut 30, 40 pounds during a camp and it'll be no problem. And the thing is, like, they don't understand that there is the thing of law of thermodynamics. Like, basically that's science. Like, calories in versus the calories you burn and the calories you consume, right? And you're going to have to be at a deficit. So when you are losing a bunch of weight, like, you are pretty much not eating much and you're burning a lot, and that really puts a lot of stress on the body. And generally it looks cool on Instagram or YouTube, or these videos of these fighters losing a good amount of weight during their fight camps, but they're feeling pretty terrible. Like, you see them going to physical therapy, they're just like, oh man, I got this nagging shoulder injury, and that's because they're not recovering well. And that's one thing. And another thing is that they with the guesswork, they don't understand the risks involved, so they are looking at what they can do to make weight to have that size advantage, but they don't understand the consequences and repercussions involved. So they think that if they cut the most amount of weight compared to their opponent, that they're going to have this advantage. But if you're doing it wrong, you're just going to feel terrible. You go into your fight, you gas out. Maybe if you're not fully rehydrated, you get injured. And basically, that size advantage doesn't really mean anything.
Indeed. Now, the nutritional aspect of it. One of the things that I see personally on my end is where people get confused with carbs and starches. Normally, they're loading up, they're doing these carb load ups, but they're doing it with starch. And then everything that they have also has carbs in it, and they don't see that.
Yeah.
Um, what do you get on the nutritional aspect? What are some of the mistakes besides
Well,
just eating junk?
yeah, eating junk is definitely one, but generally they it being a fighter is hard. It requires a lot of knowledge behind it because you have to be in a certain shape. Like, it's not like basketball and football where they have, like, a certain weight and they don't really have to cut weight. So basically, like, for you to have that size advantage, like, you have to be like a really lean and muscular and to really have that advantage. And generally, a lot of these fighters will just kind of follow these things like, hey, I'll do carnivore diet. That's like, I'm just going to eat meat, and carbs are bad. But generally, like, if you understand what your body needs, like, you need carbs in your body to perform. Another one is yeah, they pull out carbs too early. They just feel terrible. They just can't even put into focus work during their fight camp. And another thing is that they are so low in a deficit that because they're frantically trying to trim weight, by the time they have to do their water cut, they have nothing to pull and they just feel terrible. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden now they're like almost on the brink of like ending up in the hospital because they're just so depleted and their body's so stressed.
Now, what is let's say someone who's, put it like this, how do you find the perfect weight class for a fighter? So if a fighter's coming in 180 pounds, how do you find, or how do you let them know what's the perfect weight class for them?
Really depends on their size, their body composition, how much body fat they carry, and how much lean muscle they have. Generally, you can find like a certain size because there are some. I have a boxer that he wanted to compete at like 118, and just the way I see it with his eating, I was like, look, it's going to be a real hard stretch for you to make 118. Like 122 is probably like the most that you can probably cut down to, just the way your body composition is, how much you're eating, and what I see. And it's like it's going to be so restrictive for you to get down and cut to make 118. You're going to feel terrible. So this is probably like a weight class you do. So generally people they don't really have any idea of it. They just think that I want to be the biggest fighter ever, but if your performance suffers, it is not worth it. So generally, it has to be like an ideal walking weight where you are performing well, but you're obviously not really kind of heavy and carrying a lot of fat, and then you're able to kind of maintain this weight for a long run. So
Now, out there, a lot of said the sound is echoed for the interview. I'm let me get off of the IG part of it, because that's probably going to, we only have 6 viewers on there anyway. I'm going to
mm,
log off the IG part of it. I think that's what the echo is,
cool.
and discard.
Yeah.
All right. So um, this is something that a lot of fighters think they know. I'm 180 pounds. I can fight at 165 pounds or 150 pounds, and they're cutting all this weight, and they're trashing their nutrition, or just not eating enough to maintain what they need to maintain in order to have optimal performance during our training, hence injuries and so forth. But when they walk in thinking that they know this, how or what do you articulate or go towards to show them that they don't know and that they do need this help?
Generally, I point out holes in their eating, their weight cut, like how they're able to maintain their weight. So some fighters will, think that I trash myself to make weight, and I made weight, so this is the weight class. But if they are performing terribly, generally, like obviously, there's a hole in that. Um, they'll generally get a rude awakening when they go against fighters that are at a good size and then they are performing well, and then they will realize like, okay, this is not the weight class for me, or they will realize like, okay, I really need to do this the right way. So
Okay. And anybody who's viewing, if you guys have any questions, just type them up. We'll put them up and we'll try and get them answered. Um, Next question. What do you look for in the ideal athlete?
the ideal athlete, I generally jump on a lot of calls with fighters, and you get a huge variety of personality types, but there's always like this certain type of fighter that I just know that we're going to go really well. They're just very serious about their goals. There's a reason why they fight. They know that this is a life they signed up for. They're not really going to get paid. It's not like it's going to be a glamorous lifestyle, but they just love the sport so much, and they are understanding that to reach a certain level that they need to dial things in, and they are very honest with themselves. They realize like, hey, you know what, these workouts that I'm doing is probably not going to cut it when I go against higher level competition. So they're always looking at to train at the level that they want to be versus at the level that they're at, because generally the people that aren't serious, they're just like, yeah, I can run a couple miles, oh yeah, I'll just do this, I'll just do that, I follow some workout online, oh it's working pretty well because I'm 3-0 or 4-0. And I was like, okay, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I have fighters that are fighting 25, 30, 40 fights. Like, they kind of understand, like, hey, you know what? Like, if I don't do this properly, like, you can get seriously hurt. And if I'm in this for the long run, I have to take things seriously. And generally, we always get along because, like, when they realize that I just make their life easier by taking out the guesswork for their strength and conditioning, eating, recovery, and weight cuts, and they could just focus on being a better fighter with their coach. They're like, yeah, just sign me up. It's really no like argument or discussion about it. Just like, oh, how can we make this work?
Now, do you do the meal prep for them, or do you recommend the meal prep, or they do their own
They
meal prep?
will find out their own eating. So basically, a lot of fighters, they would just say, "Oh, I want a meal plan. I want a meal plan." And the thing is, meal plans are never sustainable because it's very restrictive. Basically, if you say, "Oh, you're going to eat this in the morning, you're going to eat this in the afternoon, eat this night," yeah, you'll drop in weight, but you can't maintain it. So generally, it's always a back and forth with the athletes. And once they find the right mix of foods that they enjoy, and I guide them along the way, like, "Hey, we probably need to add this in. Hey, let's cut down a little on this, or you know what, on the weekends you could fit in this." Generally, they find this right mix and a healthy relationship with food. And generally, the biggest thing that I've noticed with my business is helping a lot of fighters improve their relationship with food, where they're maintaining ideal walking weight outside of fight camp.
Now, with injuries, let's say they have an injury that's going to keep them or stop them from fighting, keep them out of the gym for a few months, even a few weeks at the least. Do you continue coaching them through that to
Yeah,
help them? Because I know there's a huge mental aspect that it's hard for them to get over in order to even get back. So having someone that's going to continue to coach them, check on them, and continue pushing them through their eating and their nutrition and what they can and can't do.
yeah.
So that's part of your program.
Yes, I have a fighter in Australia where he had a freak injury where,
Mhm.
his sparring partner like kicked out his leg when he was throwing a kick, and like he had to have knee surgery. And yeah, we were just working together. It's like, you know what, we can still move the needle forward with everything. Like, this is not serious. It's gonna take like probably like, like 2, 3 months to heal. But at least, we're gonna move the needle forward with everything. We're still gonna keep your cardio where it needs to be. We're still gonna work on your upper body strength and other leg strength, and keep you at a good weight so that as your knee comes along, you're not, starting from, like, let's say, way behind and playing catch up. Like, you are gonna have a good head start to just kind of get right back into a camp again.
Okay. All right. I'm loving it. The now, do you get a lot of fighters that do day before weigh-ins or some that do day of weigh-ins as well?
I have a mix. So um, I have a number of fighters that they'll do day before weigh-ins, and a number of fighters that recently they just do same day weigh-in tournaments, like multiple day weigh-ins, and those
Mm,
are two different bowl games. I think a lot of
yeah,
fighters make that mistake and think like, oh, is that exactly the same? I'll just cut a bunch of weight. And I was like, no, because what happens is, like, you cut a bunch of weight, you don't really have time to replenish and rehydrate like you
right,
should. Yeah, you could chug a bunch of stuff and get back, but you're going to feel like almost like you went out drinking the night before. It's just draining your body. You're like, you
right.
just think like, oh, I'm just sweating out, but that sweating out takes a lot of your body, and it really takes time for your body to really take up all of those fluids and nutrients again, and for you to feel sharp. So yeah, it's like, basically, if you're cutting a bunch of weight for same day weigh-ins, like, you're making a big mistake. That advantage you're getting is probably not going to be worth it. And for the day before weigh-ins, I work with a lot of fighters and really try to make that process as smooth as possible, because I just know there's a weight range that we could probably cut down to, and they enjoy it because they're not really feeling stressed like they were before.
Yeah, one thing I've seen that a lot of sanctioning bodies don't really check up on. I haven't seen this except in pro boxing, where they check for diuretics. So I've seen a lot of fighters, man, go on these same day weigh-ins and just like day before is pumping themselves full of diuretics in order to get rid of the weight,
Yep.
and they look like crap when they start fighting.
Yeah, man, it's a wild. It's just a culture thing. Like, it's just no matter what. Like, I had like one pro fighter, and we're just working on his eating, and he's like, yeah, I want to be like 200 for my BJJ tournament, and but I'll compete at 185. I'll cut 15 pounds a day. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, this, you can't cut 15 pounds for the same day. It's a lot of weight, and for them, they don't, all they think about is the size advantage, the size
Mm.
advantage, the size advantage. They don't really think about, oh, I'm going to look terrible. I'm going to gas out. I'm going to just, fatigue and look terrible. So that's generally, as more gyms kind of push that message about really like taking your weight cuts seriously and doing it really smoothly and as low risk as possible, then they'll start growing.
So why are weight cuts important? Why not fight at your walk around weight?
Man, so there are some. gyms and some coaches, which I understand their message and I respect it. Like, yeah, you're not, you're just going to be at your fight weight, and your walking weight is your fight weight. And it sounds good until you're in there with an opponent, and then you see like they're just towering over you, and it's just like they're just so much bigger, and it makes the experience rough. And then you realize that you're at a disadvantage. It's just like every fighter is going to do it. They're just going to find a way to get that edge. And you know, you can put so many rules in place, for the weight cutting, but it is very hard to enforce. So they're always going to push it. So generally, if you know how to do it safely and the right way without putting a lot of stress on your body, like you will have like, a healthy advantage without really putting all the risk.
Okay. Now, how can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at the MMA Doc. I post a lot on there, and very active on there. So generally, a lot of my athletes, I post a lot of testimonials with all the athletes I work with, from the various competition levels, and I do IG lives on there as well. So
Right.
it's always a good area to reach out to me and chat.
Now, I've always been curious. What are some of the athletes, the high level athletes that you've worked with?
Just high level athletes are basically like some pro, like whether it's a pro boxer, was like my boxer Irvin. I think he's like 5-0. He's going to go for 6-0. I have pro MMA fighter that's doing a Fury cage fight like next month. Like I don't have like UFC level or anything like that right now,
It's
but
coming. It's
yeah,
coming.
it's coming. It's coming. But I have two athletes that are in the IFMA tournament. Those like
Mhm.
Alex Hernandez and Jabril Aleem. And yeah,
Yeah, I know
those.
you, bro.
Yeah, Jabril's an awesome dude, man. That dude, like, everyone kind of thinks like, oh,
Yes,
he's
I
just,
know him. I've seen him compete a lot.
and they just think, oh, he's just a big guy, and that's it. And but the guy really puts in a lot of work, and he's just leveled up tremendously, and
Right.
he's just been like this great example in Chicago, where a bunch of athletes just kind of start enrolling with me because they see how much changes Jabril has made. So
Mm.
he's a good one. I have like like MMA fighters in like Virginia and all that stuff as well. So, but they're all really serious about their sport. I think another one is making his pro debut in Warriors Cup next month. So it's been really good.
And how do you manage these all by yourself, or do you have a staff?
I coach all the athletes, but I have an assistant coach, which is actually one of my athletes. She's a fighter as well, Sarah London. Really awesome. Like we got along great, and she wanted to be a part of the mission that I've been pushing. So yeah, she kind of helps me along on the back end, and helping with like offload some stuff while I kind of supervise things. So it's really about not me grinding every day and trying to coach these athletes. It's about leveraging my time and really kind of giving them what they need, and just really making sure that they're taken care of without so I can focus on other stuff to build the business.
Nice. And you're able to do this with athletes all across the world.
Yeah, so it's been really cool. Like I think one of the coolest thing was like I have an athlete in Hong Kong where he had his goal of like winning a belt. Now he has two belts, and he's gonna. He just wants more belts, and he just like defending his belt. And he's actually one person that actually put himself in the hospital trying to do a weight cut online,
Hmm.
and that's why he enrolled with me. And he's just been like a true believer ever since. So it's been awesome.
All right. What happened with him? Was like kidney shut down, or just
I probably, if I would suggest, I probably overheated, probably,
gotcha. Okay.
because they don't understand. Like they just make it a bath as hot as hell, and then they don't know. But then all of a sudden they're sitting in there, and they'll probably pass out because they're overheated.
Wow. Yeah. I've noticed even one of my athletes at one time, he just loved fried food and soda. And that was, when he gives into those things, those are some of the hardest weight cuts he's ever had. And now, I just try to get him to fight at a heavier weight. But I wish more athletes would reach out to guys and accept the added things that are come to their team, because it'll make it easier for everyone, not only just the coach, because now the coach isn't everything. The coach, if you need a therapist, get a therapist. Your coach, you know what I mean? They put everything so much on the coaches and instructors that adding these extra additives to their team would be helpful for everyone.
Yeah. One of my pro fighters just told me, he's like, "Yeah, man, like I followed your advice. I'm working with a therapist, like for mental health. Like
Yeah.
he realized, he goes, this game is 90% mental. Like I
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to put myself at a disadvantage." And that just kind of says a lot about just having the right people around you, kind of guide you in the right way. Because a lot of fighters are almost their own worst enemy at times. So when you
Oh
have
yeah.
people watching over you and pointing you in the right direction, like they generally do well. And that's why I always support any athlete that is looking to take things seriously and have a team around them.
And it's important for the fighter also to not always look for the next best thing, but to add that to what they're doing. You
Yes.
know, I see so many people that have a good team that jump ship for another team, and it's not that they jump ship for a better or worse team. It's a team that doesn't know them,
Yeah.
and like there's fighters that they have a disconnect, and the coach is able to make that connection and able to bring out the best in them. And then when they go to someone else, they don't know, they don't understand that disconnect. They just seen what that fighter has been able to put in and expect to get that out of them on their own.
Yeah.
But by them not jumping ship and them adding what they need to the team, I feel like it's just 100% better.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a shiny object syndrome that happens with them. A lot of fighters will, yes, jump to a different coach, or they'll jump to a different workout, or different type of eating and everything, and thinking that they'll give them the edge. But generally, the edge comes with consistency and
Okay.
really guidance and dialing things in. Just the stuff that works, and you just have to refine it.
All right. I have a question that came through.
Cool.
Um, what is an optimal way to rehydrate after a day before weigh-in? Also, what types of foods do you recommend?
So generally that's where I would say work with a professional, because generally, it really depends on like certain targets to hit. And I will say that, it really becomes a dangerous thing, because people think like, oh well, I'll just drink a Pedialyte, or I'll just make this and I'll eat some food. But if they do it the wrong way, all of a sudden they get an upset stomach, they go to the bathroom, they get a stomach ache, they can't replenish. So, I generally do not want to tell someone, hey, you need to drink this, you need to eat this and that, because then they will just say, well, I'm just going to do this on my own. And then they generally kind of, like I said, with my fighter that ended up in the hospital, because he's like, oh, well, this is what I need to do. And then he ends up in the hospital. So,
Gotcha. Now, I know one of the things would definitely not drink soda and eat fried chicken.
oh, some drink beer. It's crazy.
I had a fighter, a pro fighter at that, fought a great fight, ended up breaking his hand in a fight and had to finish half of the fight with one hand and ended up coming up short a little bit. And I didn't wrap his hands that day, and I always get on the guy who did wrap his hands. But after the fight, he went and grabbed a beer. And as he's drinking this beer, your body's already dehydrated. You've already gave all that you could give in that fight, and you broke a bone. His hand started tightening up, and you could see the bone in his hand start lifting up like this.
Uh, uh, I think one of the worst story was, I had an athlete that got knocked out, right? Because it was just put in a situation that he shouldn't have been in. So he got knocked out. And then I saw a picture of him like having a beer with his opponent afterwards, which is like one thing. If you get knocked down and you get rocked really badly, it is almost like instinctive, like, yeah, get up and fight. But honestly, like you get knocked again, obviously that makes that concussion worse. And then when you drink afterwards, then it just really sets it off. And he had like a prolonged recovery after that. Like I was like, once I saw the beer, I was like, oh, bro.
People don't realize, like, okay, your brain is surrounded by liquid, and when you dehydrate your body, that liquid dehydrates with it as well. And
Yeah,
then when you're drinking something that's going to dehydrate you more, man, just don't see it. Don't
yeah,
see it.
yeah. It's a lot of wild things I've seen, and I'm just hoping that the message just continues to grow as it should. And I'm really awesome. I'm really grateful to just have these really serious athletes that are just understanding it, and they are just setting these examples in different parts of the country and world, and their teammates are seeing it, and now they're training smarter. So it's just growing just by the results and word of mouth.
Now, what do you think, as far as an athlete is concerned, is a question that came through. What is a good age to retire? Is it in your late 20s? Is it in your late 30s? Is it before?
It really depends, right? The age is, in a sense, just a number. It really depends on how well you treated your body, how long you're competing for, what level of injuries you have, and how sustainable your training regimen is, right? Because there are some fighters that they just maintain. They've been doing this crazy, absurd training regimen during their fight camps over and over and over. They burn out quick. They just can't do it. They can't keep up with it, and then they feel like, oh, if I can't maintain this insane pace, I don't have it in me anymore. But I tell them, it's like, well, that was never sustainable to begin with, right? So a great example is like, Jabril. Like once we really dialed in his training regimen, like the guy just competes like all the time. Like, he just competes multiple times a year. He never feels trash during fight camp. He's just feeling really good. He did the IFMA. Now he's fighting like, in freedom in like the end of the month, and he's just going to keep competing because he just feels pretty good. So he has like that potential for a long career in the sport because he's just not injured. He feels good and he just can keep going. He doesn't take a lot of damage. If you're a different fighter, it just takes a lot of damage. Trash yourself, treat your body like, like it's a beater car. Like you're not going to last long.
Now, I know I can answer this question, but they're asking you. It says, what's an example of overtraining and how do you know that you're overtrained?
So there are a couple different signs of overtraining. So one, definitely your resting heart rate is high. And, you're always waking up tired, right? You're just waking up tired and sore all the time. Your performance starts decreasing. You're very like agitated and moody, and like a lot of injuries start popping up. So generally, not like a traumatic injury where you fell and broke an arm, but like all of a sudden, all these nagging injuries start popping up. You just feel terrible all the time, and those are a couple signs of overtraining.
Okay. So the nagging part that can come with the that can come with the weight cut too.
Yes, yes, yes.
Let's see if I got any more questions in here. Anything you want to add?
Um, for me, I always just say like, I think we live in an age where there's so much information that is information overload now, and there are a lot of athletes that, you know, I'll chat with them too. They're just like, "Hey, I'm following your content," because they just want to learn from me, which
Mhm.
is fine, but it won't really get you to that level that you need because you really need to work with someone individually that really finds out about you and really kind of helps dial things in. Because I speak very general. What you see a workout that will work out for another athlete is probably not where you're at right now. And generally, like if you stick to what you need and a professional dials in for you, you will make more gains versus jumping to every other workout that you see a different fighter doing.
Okay. So we got Southpaw TV, pretty famous YouTuber. He says, "Can you? I don't know if you can see the question. How do I burn lower stomach fat? I do a million sit-ups a day." So he's, I think, in his late 30s.
Hmm.
He might be about 40 at that.
Hmm.
But it's an example.
Yeah. So a lot of people will think that they can spot reduce fat, and you can't. It's just really due to your own genetics, and you know, as you dial in your diet, things will generally come down, and then usually the belly fat area is like the last one to come off. But for some people it doesn't come off, but it's not indicative of how well you perform as an athlete, though. The,
Now, I do know. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything. I'm not a nutritionist, but I do know by a lot of people don't do parasite cleanses. And without doing a parasite cleanse, sometimes, especially if you've never done one, you can have swollen intestines, just stuff sitting in your intestines that you can get rid of just by doing a parasite cleanse.
yeah, I think one issue that I always see with a lot of fighters is they don't eat a lot of fiber. Like
Yeah,
it's it's
that's a big one.
it's a big thing, man. Like they just don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and they don't consume a lot of fiber. And generally, they complain of this bloated feeling. And generally, when I have, oh, okay, I just ruined it. So basically,
More
yeah, they
fruits.
consume, yeah, exactly. Just dial in your eating. Let's see what happens, man. So generally, when they start consuming a lot more fiber, fruits and vegetables, uh, their gut health improves, and then they generally feel a lot better overall, and it actually makes their cuts smoother as well.
Yeah, definitely. I know when I was in Costa Rica, man, the fruit was amazing. I had fresh fruit every morning, and it tastes so much different there than it does here. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's a lot different when it's just grown,
Yeah,
organically versus mass produced shit.
yeah. Then just driving down the road and seeing a mango tree, it's like, man, I really want one of those.
Yeah, yeah. Costa Rica is nice, man. It's an awesome place.
But yeah, Southpaw, if you're still there, man, more fruits, more vegetables, and not like the soggy stuff, man. Bite something that crunches.
Yeah, man. Just hit me up on Instagram. We'll chat, see what's going on, and see if you really want to work and dial things in because um, eh, no matter what level you are, you're never above working with someone. It's
So
just
you work with old guys like us too.
yeah, man. It's just what? Some of the old guys are like some of my favorite to work with because they appreciate it. Like they've reached that level where they realize they're not invincible anymore. They're not like in their 20s. They just think like, well, I could just go drink it the night before and then go train. Like the older guys, when they have all the injuries, this and that, like they realize that life, they can't take it for granted. So they appreciate being able to move, being able to trim down, not being on medications and everything. And it's really cool to see like some older martial artists just trim down, be in the best shape possible, and just enjoying training and then enjoying their family as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. The now, what about like going through a routine, or how do you get someone through um, understanding limitations?
Limitations, as in how
Well,
hard.
I can't run anymore. We're talking about old guys now. I can't
Oh,
run. I can't run anymore. I can't do any squats. Back issues, shoulder issues.
you know what the thing is? Most most people will say they can't squat or they can't run is because they saw a healthcare professional that they really didn't understand and just told them like, oh, you can't run anymore, you have the knees of an 80-year-old or anything like that. And
Right.
the one thing that I did enjoy was that I kind of helped them train smarter, put
Mhm.
on muscle, feel better overall. And then I was like, hey, why don't you try a jog? And then they're like, oh wow, I'm able to jog now. Like I didn't really realize I could do this again, or I can squat. And generally, once you teach them to trust their body and they're feeling better overall, they generally do better versus,
Well, I know I have one guy tuning in that he's I think he's in his 40s. He has his back fused
okay.
um, back in maybe 2011, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, he was an undefeated heavyweight amateur fighter and just had to stop after that. Now he's one of our officials, and he tries to work out, tries to stay onto it. But what are some of the ways that he could continue or benefit from you with knowing these limitations?
Generally, once I chat with an individual like that in detail, I really kind of see what's going on, how they're moving, and generally, you can still get them moving, whether it's squats with a dumbbell or with body weight or getting in machines or anything like that. You can never go wrong with getting strong. Like
Okay.
it's just one of those things where, like, if you weight train throughout your life, you're going to have a much easier life in your older ages. Like when you don't weight train, like you're just gonna
Yeah,
really,
he actually messaged me, said I have terrible knees and the back surgery.
yeah. So that's someone that would probably benefit from just really taking control of his health and really kind of moving things forward versus kind of letting it just spiral down.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about people dealing with things like lupus?
Lupus is a little tricky. They definitely have to work with like a team of professionals with it, and then they have their flare ups. So it's a little tough, but generally, like I will say that that's something that I wouldn't specialize in. I will kind of get them moving and everything, but I will be very respectful to their flare ups and everything, and make sure that I'm they're in contact with the professionals that are managing that with them, and then I will operate within those guidelines.
Okay. All right. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff. I'm hoping I've asked some questions that no one else asked.
Oh man, you know what? I always love just chatting with people, man. It's just it's always a cool thing. It's always an honor to just have someone just kind of want to know more about what I feel and think, and the message that I push. So like I'm
Indeed,
always
and we're happy to have you as a sponsor. Hope you
yeah,
get that commercial ready so we can get that commercial aired.
yeah. I have it planned. So gonna, like someone in Chicago Muay Thai is I should probably shoot it, and then have some of my athletes on there that were in IFMA, and it's gonna come out nice.
Nice. Are you located in Chicago or are you in New York?
Oh, I'm in New York City, so it's funny that obviously because of Jabril and other athletes, like my roster in Chicago really grew a lot, and it's just because they just know, like, oh man, this guy's like legit, he's good, and he cares about us, and I don't tell them to like refer them over; they just kind of happily refer it. So it's a very cool culture over there. They just support each other as fighters.
Nice, nice. That was the one that messaged about the knees in the back.
Yeah, man, he can just message me and then just chat and see what he wants to do to really dial it in because obviously people are living longer these days, and you want to really live life instead of like kind of just struggling through life.
Indeed. Now, what are your opinions before we go about like vegetarian or fruitarian, pescatarian diets?
It's really about individual preference, but you do need a good variety of things. So like if you have proteins, generally people need protein in their body, and they need a right mix of foods. So um, you need complete proteins. So basically one protein source is going to be a lot different than another protein source. Like animal protein is going to be a lot different than, let's say, pea protein or protein from bread. So generally, you want like a complete protein source, or you need a variety of it. So if your diet kind of fits those requirements of having a good variety of amino acids for your protein sources, and then you are having your proper fiber, proper carbs, and everything, and you're just feeling better, then any diet can go pretty well for you.
Cool. Appreciate you, brother. Well, we'll be in touch, and hopefully a few more people reach out. And again, happy to have you as one of the sponsors on Gut Check.
Yeah,
And
man, you're an awesome dude, man. So yeah, happy to sponsor your promotion. Like you do an awesome thing with the charity or
thanks,
what you have going. Like
Warrior Training Project. Yeah,
it's such an awesome thing. When you sent me that, I was like, oh man, that's awesome. I'm happy to sponsor this.
yeah. The Warrior Training Project is something I've always done, but never actually did it through a nonprofit. So for years, even before I owned a gym, well, it started with a mentor helping me out, and through this older gentleman helping me out, he became like another father to me. He was actually a more positive figure in my life than my own father, and he always said, "Don't pay me back." I'm like, "I gotta pay you back." He's like, "No, the only way that I'll accept payment from you is by watching you do this for someone else." And it just became a part of me. I didn't even think about it. And one day I saw him at, it was my grandmother had passed away, and he came to the memorial and he thanked me. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I'm watching you. I've seen you help so many people." And through the young men and women that I've helped, everyone always says, "You should start a nonprofit. You should start a nonprofit." And I don't want to do that. I don't have anybody to write that stuff up for me, this and that. And then last year, I just decided to do it. And then everything got, by the end of last year, early this year, everything got approved, and we just started taking off. Now we have our first athlete that we're sponsoring, young Giovanni Monroy. and trying to get him. He's 10 years old. He's going to be fighting at 60 pounds. Get him to the nationals, the Junior Olympic Nationals in Texas, and been raising money on GoFundMe for that. And some of the monies that you've provided are going towards that.
Nice.
And then Friday we have our first kind of like a teen conference where I sit down with the teens and talk to them about alcohol and drug prevention. I'm going to talk to them about the three major things that kind of get in their way as they're growing up in order to reach success or kind of start over in a poverty type of atmosphere. And the uh, the response that I'm getting is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Actually, I just one of the guys, this guy right here, bam, says go Geo. He's one of the young men I've helped when he was, I guess 12 or 13. He comes in and covers me when I can't be at the gym now, and he trains the guys at the highest level. I mean, he's incredible, and
Nice.
it's just so rewarding seeing the fruits of your labor kind of give back and want to give back to others. The young Geo, his father was one of our fighters,
Oh
and
wow.
his father actually never competed because he was raising a family. So I remember when Geo was born, and he gave up everything because he had to make money and raise his family, and now Geo's competing. So
That's awesome.
putting that in to help that family out and get Geo over there is like it's rewarding in itself.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things I always love about combat sports. Like everyone kind of thinks of the glory and the fame and the Instagram and all that stuff, but I always kind of just see like people really changing their lives and the people involved just changing lives in the sport. So with you with the nonprofit, that have fighters that they're literally fighting so they can get out of the hood. Like they want a better life for themselves. They want to build a legacy for
Now,
themselves.
I fought to deal with life.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to deal with things, and the only way that I could focus was by focusing on fighting. And then that made me want to take care of everything else I had to take care of so that I could fight. But when I didn't fight, I got in so much trouble.
Yeah, man. That's some athletes they have that. I always say it's like, idle hands is the devil's playground. It's just like
Yeah.
you have nothing to do, you're gonna get into trouble.
And just what you do alone is so important to fighters. When I was fighting, that disadvantage. I had to fight uphill for many, many fights. The coach that I had no idea about weight cuts. He was a heavyweight fighter, so he always fought wherever he walked around. Well, I was 140 pounds or 150 pounds, and when I fought, by the time that I fought, everybody was 160 pounds, and I'm still 140, 150 pounds.
Yeah, man. It's I will say like just changing like an athlete's life by just instilling that discipline inside and outside of the gym because
Mhm.
they really need to live that life as a fighter. Instead of just going in and just training and just really like dialing their eating, their routines, their mindset, it's been really rewarding to see. I just see some athletes where, you know, like I have one that's in the south side of Chicago and he used to blow up to like 210, 220, and he fights at like 168, 175. And yeah, and but you know what? Like he enrolled with me, he just paid the money, but I changed his life. Like it was just really cool.
Nice.
He's like ideal walking weight. He just walks around 180 now, 182 or whatever. And he's gonna compete soon, just have a smooth cut. And his relationship with food and mindset towards training has just changed tremendously. And he wants to be a pro fighter. And I was like, dude, you're gonna have a good foundation to make that happen now.
Nice. Now, how do you get them to face their relationship with food?
Um, they almost like sometimes my content will kind of plant seeds, but generally when we speak with each other and I'll ask those hard questions, the serious ones, they'll admit it. They're like, "Yeah, man, like I love food, I love this, whatever," and they realize that it is not in alignment with their goals. And generally, once I show them that you can trim down, you can really improve your relationship with eating, but still fit in like foods that you enjoy. We're all human, right? You're not going to be eating salads all day, but once they realize that they can fit in foods that they enjoy, like they're a lot less stressed, and then they're able to maintain that walking weight for a long run.
And now I remember you talking about too much cardio through one of our discussions. Um, how do we kind of get them in the realm of understanding the difference between cardio and strength and conditioning and the mesh that should be there between cardio and strength and conditioning? Because you got everybody that'll just eat a bunch of crap and then want to run it off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so that's a very common thing that you can't really out eat a bad diet. And if you're eating a lot of highly processed foods, let's say fried foods, junk food, or quote oil, you're not going to feel as good as you should. Generally, when you're doing cardio, it's really not the goal is not for you to lose weight. Is really to improve your conditioning. And generally, if you are trying to beat your time for every run and try and burn as many calories as possible for your run, then obviously you're pretty much treating your fight camp like a fat camp. And there are energy systems in your body that you need to train to develop to really have that amazing gas tank. And if you're just running a red lining every session, odds are you are treating it like a fight camp. You're going to feel terrible, you're going to get injured, and you're just going to set yourself back.
gotcha. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Everybody that's watching, if you guys have any questions, we're going to wrap it up. So if you have any questions, ask your questions now. Let's get them out. I've had a few questions come through text. One came through email, and then we had one or two on the live here. So please ask your questions now while we got the MMA doc right here.
Yeah, man. So one thing, like, I always appreciate you, Greg. Like, you're a coach, but you appreciate, like, understanding that there's more outside of your realm. Like, you specialize in fighting. I can never coach someone to be like the fighter, like how you would. So you understand, like, hey, there's another end of things, and that they're always better off working with a professional. So
Oh yeah, I told you my instructor is a doctor, so he instilled that in me a long time ago that there's people that are for this and people that are for that, and not one of us can do everything.
yeah, and it really, like, I would love to see, like, more and more coaches embrace that, and then they will realize that their lives become easier because they're not trying to manage everything at once. Like, it's hard enough just to keep the doors open, and you know,
It's more than hard, especially when you have so many so many name tags. It's like it becomes overwhelming because you can't give everyone the same amount of energy.
yep,
Because I had a fighter one time. He was running. Everybody was running, and the ones who kind of slack, I'm motivating and I'm pushing them. And he was one of the ones that never really had to speak to in slack. And he ran by me. He's like, "I'm doing a good job too." And it was like it hit me. It was like, man, I've focused so much energy on the weak that the ones who are not strong, I'm not giving them what they need. So I'm
yeah,
not really, so it was good that he did that. And I thanked him for that, even though he was upset.
yeah,
But it was eye-opening for me.
yeah. Because everybody wants to feel like they're being supported, they're being
Right.
watched, they're being listened to, and appreciated as well. So
And when you have all those aspects, you have all the, like I thank Job for helping me out, because I have clients that'll come up to me and says, I really appreciate having him there. He takes so much time and he pushes us so hard. And then Sensei Nate, will have people that come up and says, man, I was working out with Sensei Nate on Saturday and he motivated me so much. And it was like that made me feel good because I wasn't there and I didn't have to do that and I didn't have to spread myself thin between so many different people.
yeah, it's I give a lot of coaches credit because you guys do really wear a lot of different hats, and it's a lot, just to be an awesome trainer, but then you have to understand the business end, and it's just a lot. So, for every coach that's out there that's just like, hey, you know what, it's okay to work with a professional for this, that. It really benefits the athletes. Like, generally, if a coach kind of feels like I have to keep everything in house and
Yeah.
everything and this and that, they're
I
probably
used to be that way. I used to be that way because I came up as a very angry fighter and I
yeah,
was a very angry coach in the beginning.
yeah,
So I closed everyone away and I made, you know, the opposing teams not want to kind of socialize with us or anything like that. And I was just an angry guy growing up, man. Here's a
Yeah,
question that we have.
yeah, and that's generally what it stems down to, right? Some always something going on from within, and
Yeah,
generally, like once you're a little more in tune with that, and you realize that, and you understand, like it doesn't have to be that way. Generally, life becomes easier. So,
indeed. This says, Doc, what advice you have for nerve damage? I'm trying to strengthen my core and relieve lower back pain.
yeah, you're gonna have to get evaluated and then really see what's going on because there's a lot of different reasons for it. Depends on whether it's on and off or constant. It really there's no cookie cutter approach. So that's why I generally don't recommend people kind of look up like stuff online, like, oh, what I should do for nerve pain. They'll just say it, but there's so many different reasons for it why you have
Mhm.
nerve pain. And generally, when I'll like examine it, and I'll say, okay, you know what, this is what's going on. This is probably what we could do to help calm it down. Does this help? All right, let's push that along. And that's why I always recommend like someone working individually with someone.
Okay, so him hitting you up, you're going. Would you be able to help him with this, or would he need to go see someone else and give you that information in order to help him?
We'll see what's going on. Like once I've really learned the history and this and that, because like you say, hey, I had my back fuse, right? It's like, hey, if you have one level, it's probably not bad. But if you do like a bunch of levels at a time and now you can't move, then obviously it's a different story. So
Mm.
that's why it really boils down to like that individual conversation, and then I really get a better idea of things and say, okay, you know what, I could probably help you, or versus like, hey, you know what, get this checked out first.
Okay, so now we know you're working with everybody and not just fighters.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I For marketing purposes, it's a lot easier to say I work with fighters. And
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's inspiring for the old guys like me.
yeah,
Hoping Nate hits you up, and I'm sure we'll have this on our YouTube channel. You can share it and
yeah,
take
man,
any clips out of it, use it anyway.
yeah,
Um, Thank you for being on. I mean, we've almost been on for an hour. We tried to close off, and then we just had more. It's just I love the conversation.
yeah, man. I appreciate it, man. You're a good dude. Really, I respect the things that you're doing. When
Thank you.
a nonprofit, and obviously we are on the same level of mindset when we're just chatting with each other. So it's kind of like just because shit
Appreciate
crap pretty much instead of like some formal interview.
it. Indeed, indeed, you got the job. uh, he says John Mosley is part of the main event. He says, "Are you in there on the 20th? You gonna be at the show?"
June 20th.
No, May 20th, next week.
May 20th. Oh man. Maybe not. I may stop by.
All
So
right.
I'm
Well,
in
look
Florida
forward.
right now. So once I get back home.
Hopefully, if you are, I look forward to meeting you, brother. We got another one June 10th
Oh,
after this
dope,
one.
dope, dope. Cool, man.
All right. All right, brother. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. He said we're gonna need you, Slim. He said he gonna need you. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. MVJ Warrior signing off. Say goodbye to the MMA Doc.
All right, man. Thank you.
You're welcome, brother.